calendar runs wide. I don't even know what I have tomorrow. So what is our holdup?
We're good now.
Oh, we're good now?
Yeah, we just don't have Zoom. It's not.
We had
Not
one person
working.
joining via Zoom, but Zoom's not
Was
working.
that Brian? Oh.
One of the project architects.
Okay. Can I sponge off this?
Sure.
All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We'll call the Plan Commission to order, and I will ask staff to take a quick roll call.
Thank you, Mayor Devine.
Gavel.
Mayor Devine. Wayne Clark. Yes. Kathleen Dagenhart.
Here.
Jessica Katzenmeyer.
Here.
David Roshka.
Here.
Brian Frank is excused.
All right. And
We have a quorum.
we have a quorum. Item C will be the approval of the minutes from our meeting in March.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. And then we will move up to items 2A and 2B taken together, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our first project today. This is the Urban Pioneer. This is a special use and a site landscape and architectural review, which we will be doing today. This is a proposed multi-unit dwelling, 43 units in condominiums, so there will be owner-occupied units. This is located in the C2 Neighborhood Commercial District. It is a special use in that district. This will be built at 2 lots, which will be combined via certified survey map at a later date that make up just under an acre, 0.84 acres, located at the corner of 80th Street and National Avenue. This project is at the site of the former Puremax Bank and former Happy Hobby, which was destroyed by fire on New Year's Eve 2012. Very dramatic. Today is a vacant lot, so it's been sitting there for approximately 10 years. These two sites, again, would be combined by a certified survey map to do this project. So looking at the site plan, in orange, the building will be located at the northern half of the property. This is tucked up against the street front line to kind of create this active street edge there. The southern half of the property will be primarily for parking. There's an existing driveway off of South 80th Street right here, which residents will be able to use to access the site as well as deliveries and drop-offs. There's going to be approximately 53 parking stalls. 37 will be underground and accessed by this driveway here. There'll be 10 surface parking stalls, and then there'll be 6 individual garages, which will serve townhomes on the first level. The number of parking stalls is below our minimum parking requirement, but staff will be recommending that Common Council waive the parking requirement, as this project is in line with our proposed zoning codes parking requirements. It also is well served by transit, walking, and biking, and it targets residents who may be less prone to having vehicles or having multiple vehicles, kind of more eco-conscious and more urban style resident. The landscaping will be scattered throughout the site, is going to be heavily planted, specifically in the southern portion of the site, shown here in green. This is going to be a kind of function as a buffer between where the residents will be and the railroad located to the south. It will also have rain gardens to collect stormwater drainage off of the surface parking. So getting into the architectural plans, the building is approximately 87,000 square feet, 5 stories and 77.5 feet tall at its highest point. The design team was inspired by the industrial roots of the neighborhood to come up with the materials and structure of the building. As I've mentioned before, one thing this building we think does very well is activate the street and have interesting interactions there between the public and private space. The first floor is inviting with this kind of transparent glass lobby here at the corner, kind of a focal point along that street frontage. And there's also lots of interactions between the building's private realm and the public realm of the sidewalk along National Avenue in particular, where there's these individual entryways and porches for the residents in the townhomes. There's also some unique design features we'd like to highlight. This kind of central tower has a faux stained glass feature at the top, and there's these kind of unique industrial colored glass panel style windows at each of these townhomes along the street front there. Looking at the materials, the design team wanted to kind of evoke the industrial heritage of the site, so they chose industrial type materials with a natural base of colors. We think that these materials are a variety of quality, concrete and cementitious materials. Primarily they'll be hardy board, glass fiber reinforced concrete, and smooth finish concrete panels. Those will be kind of the bulk of the structure. So it's a kind of similar palette of materials and kind of different natural materials that will kind of hold up well over time. Looking at the elevations, this top view here shows the view from National Avenue, the north side of the building. This bottom view shows the south side of the south-facing side of the building, which is from the kind of a view from the parking area in the back and from the railroad. With this structure of the building here, the lower stories are actually kind of it's really functioning like a double height first floor. These first 2 stories are going to have this kind of the concrete panel base, and the intent of that is to kind of have that industrial strong base to the rest of the structure. This will have where the individual entries and porches will be for the townhome units. The upper stories will be clad in a lot of the different hardy board type sidings and some more cementitious paneling. There'll be these white hardy board around kind of the majority of it. Then the kind of natural finish hardy board will be on the east side and kind of the focal point of the building above the lobby entrance. And then to kind of provide like a sense of rhythm is the glass fiber reinforced concrete. And that it's going to have a copper patina finish, which is intending to kind of evoke the industrial kind of heritage of the area. Every unit will have a balcony. The balconies will have wood decking and then kind of a metal railing. And then here's just some views up from the west and the east sides. All right, so getting into the floor plans. There's going to be a diverse array of unit types in this building. There will be 8 townhomes, 6 with garages and 2 without. Those will all be located on the first floor of the building, which is shown here. There will also be 12 micro condo studios, so these are very small studios. There'll be 9 other studios, and then there's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Let's see, going here. Oh yeah, looking at the main floor here, we also just want to point out that the lobby is located on the east, kind of the northeast side of the building here. There's also going to be a bike room for bicycle storage. These floor plans show the second floor. The second floor, this top one shows the second floor, which isn't really a full floor, it's a lofted floor. So this will provide a unique space for residents in their units. As you can see, these townhomes here, it kind of gives them more square footage. It also gives them a kind of unique environment within their own units, being able to kind of look down into the bottom part of the unit. There will also be a lofted community space and kitchen as an amenity for residents located above the lobby. The 3rd through 5th floors will contain the rest of the units, 35 condos, and have a variety of different floor plans. Let's see, I think these are the 3rd and 4th have similar layouts overall, and then the 5th floor is slightly different with some larger units, and there's an additional foot or 2 of ceiling height for those units as well. We do not have pictures of this on the screen here, but the rooftop will have a unique amenity as well. There'll be a rooftop deck for residents, kind of located on the eastern half of the building, and then there will be a solar field, a solar kind of panel array on the western side of that, which will supply energy to the building, and it'd be another amenity in kind of reducing energy costs for residents and providing a kind of green selling point for the building. Staff recommends the approval of this project and its site landscaping architectural plans, subject to these conditions we have listed here. This includes a couple revised plan conditions which have generally been met. One of those that we still will need to look into a little further is just a revised landscaping plan that can be approved by our forestry department, and an exterior lighting plan. A certified survey map, as mentioned before, to combine the lots into a single parcel. We will require a surety bond, documentation showing the compliance with our stormwater management ordinance, and then a utility plan. And then last but not least, a common council will have to approve the special use. So now, if the planning commissioners have any comments or questions,
Thanks, Zach.
the presentation.
Any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's a motion in front of us. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Then we will move on to items 3A and 3B.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, everybody. Rich Pippick and Walter Holtz are here representing the Deco event space. This is a former department store at 71st and Greenfield Avenue, formerly a J.C. Penney's department store, which was built back in 1936, and later in its years in the 80s became the wedding center, which is shown in the picture on the left. They rented tuxedos and so on, similar wedding type of fare. So in that theme of weddings and events and corporate events, Mr. Holtz has purchased the building in about 2017 and operated it as an antique store for a short period of time. He's got a different path that he'd like to go now with the building, and that would include this event space. It's about a 20,000 square foot building, and it fronts the Greenfield Avenue at the intersection of 71st and Greenfield Avenue on the north side of the street. The property is in our downtown, and it's zoned C1, which is Central Business District. This type of use does require a special use for any building that's over 5,000 square feet. If you're creating an assembly, such as an event space, that just triggers a special use. The hours are primarily going to be Fridays and Saturdays, your weekends between 5 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. for hosting wedding ceremonies as well as receptions. And then there would also be the opportunity for other parties and corporate events, typically smaller functions, which could also happen during the week. But the timeline for the work is going to be substantial completion this summer, and then the overall bulk of work being completed later on this year in the fall. Some of the alterations that are planned, this is the north elevation and the west elevation of the building. Primarily a lot of new storefront windows, all of the ones on the west, as well as the south, I should say south elevation and west elevation. So the south elevation will have 3 new very large windows installed. Those were actually the openings. If you recall that wedding center picture I had shown before, those were covered up over the years with an aggregate material, siding material. And Mr. Holtz has actually cut those out and done some exploratory work early on. It was allowed, and he's going to be filling those spaces with 3 new large windows, which will provide light into the building and in the first, second, and third floors of the building. New windows would be also adorned on the west elevation of the building. New polished fascia on the canopies. So the existing bracketed canopy would be maintained, and then just updated with a new stainless steel finish. And then up above, there's on the frontage and west and south elevations, there would be new eyebrow headers above the larger windows on the second floor. And that would just sort of carry the theme up from the first floor to the second floor and sort of complete the upper look. What to do with the design solution that the architect has designed for the south elevation, as well as that portion of that west elevation fronting Greenfield Avenue, is removal of that aggregate siding that's been installed at some point in the past, in the 70s or 60s or 70s, and then replacing it with a porcelain tile. There's 2 different colors of porcelain tile. The item numbers on this plan are item numbers 10 and 11. Just 2 different colors of the porcelain tile, a dark gray and a lighter gray. The lighter gray being between that stainless steel canopy and the darker gray porcelain tile, and the darker porcelain being around those second floor windows. But aside from that, there is some new signage proposed on the front of the building. The wedding center signage is gone, of course, and then this new signage scheme is being presented to the city for permit, and that would be placed on the edge of the existing canopy. And then also there will be Other interior updates will include a four-stop elevator within the building, accessible restrooms, installation of a new grand central staircase. Now, there's a central staircase in the building now, but that would be replaced for a grander appearance between the first and second floor balconies. And then interior finish upgrades throughout. I don't have images of the floor plans in this presentation here, but in the staff report on pages 2 and 3 of the, well, I'm not sure what pages you have here, but for the deco item, there are floor plans indicated in here. And just going through that, there are more or less 3 floors, and then a basement. The basement's going to be set up for a lounge and sort of preparation area prior to an event. If you're having a wedding, the groomsmen and the bridesmaids can have their separate quarters and areas to sort of hang out and prepare for the event. And then the first floor will be used for the reception area. The second floor is sort of an overflow reception area, balcony area where with open views to the first floor down below and that grand staircase. And then going up another floor to the third floor will be where the ceremonies would be held for weddings and so on. And then aside from that, it's just, I think there is another floor, but that's just storage at this point. So, but it's a very interesting building. It has got a history as past history as a department store. The improvements being made here are quite notable, and it's going to be a welcome change to our downtown and a destination type of use. In terms of parking, there may be some concerns, of course, with parking, and one of the recommendations that we have in our staff report was to sort of, ask Mr. Holtz and his team to sort of how do you foresee parking taking place? We have a supply of parking in the downtown West Allis area, about 385 parking stalls. In addition, there's another roughly about 161 street parking spaces in the downtown Greenfield Avenue and side street areas. But if everyone should drive to this, this event, space in a car, where are we going to park? Well, I think the supply of off-street and on-street parking is the answer. But I think as we've learned a little bit from the Gage event space over in the 1100 block of 70th Street, not everyone drives to these events, and not everyone necessarily shows up all at one time either. It's sort of as the team put it, it's sort of a trickle-in, trickle-out type of scenario where people come over a period of time and then stay for the event, and some leave earlier than others. So it tends to sort of work out not as one massive lump of people all at one time. In addition, the city is fully served by public transit. There are, of course, rideshare services like Uber and Lyft. And then with the hotels that we have in our city, and one underway on the Home to Suites on 70th Street, not too far away from this location, and the Hampton Inn and Suites on 84th and Greenfield, the event coordinators here could potentially schedule shuttle services between the hotels and this event space, or Uber and Lyft rides to the event. So further offsetting, the need for off-street parking or street parking for that matter. So aside from that, we're recommending approval subject to the conditions in the staff report, which are briefly described here. One of the things that we're working on, and we'll be working with the applicant on, is a plan for refuse. They will be hiring a commercial hauler. We'll want to know the location of dumpsters. There is, in the past, dumpsters have been placed right behind on the north wall of the building, between the alley and the building. That could potentially be the case for the future of this space as well. Other ideas could be to perhaps even take out a couple parking stalls within the downtown West Allis parking area, off-street parking, to create a more consolidated refuse plan. But we'll work that out. I guess we've got that as a condition of approval here, just to sort of figure that out as we go. Staff was also interested in identifying, within the kitchen area on the first floor. Actually, it's not a kitchen. It's more of a caterer prep area. They're not going to be doing any cooking on site. All foods or drinks are going to be brought in with a caterer, and then just kept warm or kept cold as need be on site, and then arranged within the hall. So But so we're just calling out that kind of ask. Our health department typically likes a lot of, as they call it, sinkage. But I mean, we're just sort of advising the applicant there. On the west side, there's a door proposed in the west elevation of the building. And that's primarily probably likely an exit door. Our building inspection department had suggested, preferably trying to line that up, the floor level of the inside of the building with the sidewalk right outside. It may be a little bit difficult in learning more from the architectural, design team, but there could potentially be a ramp or some other accommodation outside the building to, gradually, offset that distance in grade. So that's just something we'll be working on. Exterior lighting details, the building will have exterior lighting on the front fascia of the building, and window transparency details. So item 2 has been satisfied by the, pretty much more or less by the applicant, so we're not so concerned about that anymore. And then we've scheduled a public hearing on May 17th, which would go before the Common Council. So that's a summary of our recommendation. We're recommending approval. We're happy to entertain any questions at this point.
That's a question.
Thanks, Steve.
You got a question?
Jessica, then.
So with the hours being till 11:30, I assume most events will probably be wrapping up by 11 or at the latest?
I'll save that for Walter. Yeah.
Wrapping it up by 11, everybody has to be up by 11:30.
Okay.
Yep.
I live across the street, actually, in the building across the street, so it's nice to see these welcome changes as well, too. So, thank you.
Yep.
David?
And we've worked hand in hand also we've got a number of different shuttle services that are more than willing to. What we're finding is somewhere between 18 to 30% of people are only quote unquote driving to weddings anymore, but we still have a backup plan for multiple different shuttle services that are more than willing to shuttle people for a fee. They'll do a 4-hour or a 5-hour minimum, and they'll do X amount of 10-mile radius, so they'll go as far as Highway 100 or as far as downtown to shuttle people if they're staying at a nearby hotel.
And it's good to hear to have a shuttle service for people to be safe, especially at most of these events. There's always alcohol involved, so.
Yeah, and it's times are changing. It's just most of these people they're doing the Uber or the Lyft, and I also think with the new hotel on 70th Street, that's also just going to be another opportunity to stay close to the event.
Thank you.
I don't know that it's a question. I guess I'm concerned about the parking a little bit, and you did touch on that. Does the city have? I mean, I know we know how many stalls there is. Is there any way that we're monitoring, or as far as usage? Like you go to Camino on a Friday night and drive around the block 3 times trying to find a spot. Well, this is going to add to that. So I'm curious if there's any sort of a process or how we're watching the usage, or if there's a way to know that, all right, we're probably getting close to capacity, or I don't know if there's a good answer, but
It's a monitoring other than, trying to, doing the same thing you're doing probably. I mean, it's maybe, and just parking a block further away and then, walking up, and it's.
do we have any numbers on like, all right, on a Friday or Saturday night?
We don't. We haven't, I guess to say we don't, I guess we haven't been, taking inventory of what the hot spots are on their peak times where, restaurants I would agree would be, Friday nights, Saturdays. And,
Right. Well, I assume this space is going to, those are going to be prime times as well. It's going to be a Friday and Saturday
one
night.
thing I can tell you as far as like Camino is concerned, most of the people that are going to, for instance, Camino, they're not aware of the spots that are behind our building. They're mostly looking on Greenfield.
Sure.
Whereas we're going to be notably telling people, hey, take advantage of those spots behind the building.
Yep.
And,
Well, that's where we always go to park too, because the street's always packed.
and then that's
But-
that's another reason too why we're doing that west entrance is because the last thing we want to do is we don't want to clog up Greenfield Avenue.
Sure.
So we want to have a nice flow coming from the west end, so it doesn't do anything with Greenfield Avenue.
Sure.
But we've done the numbers and the homework, and there's this. There really is a ton of parking, especially when you're going to the north.
Sure. That's great. I think the elevations look great. I think it'll be a good addition to the area.
I agree.
Any other questions? Wayne?
Thank you. Steve, on this set of conditions where
Sure.
You've got 3 listed here and you've got 4 in the staff report.
Okay.
And on the fourth one in the staff report, does that, they're going to be allowed to repair the city sidewalk
Yeah,
after a year? It seems to me that that's,
that fourth item is an old. We probably should reconsider even putting this into our staff recommendations. It's an old Michael Lewis, former city engineer, recommendation that he always wanted us to put in our staff report for Plan Commission. But it basically, the city's policy is basically if there's a damaged sidewalk, maybe, or something that's heaved over a certain threshold of, like, say, a half inch, the city can basically tell that property owner, we need to fix your sidewalk. Or the city could go ahead and fix the sidewalk and then assess the property owner. It's within our municipal code, so therefore I'd say we
so
may not
what's
even,
the status of
we may not
this?
even need to say
What's
that.
the status of this sidewalk?
This sidewalk is, to my knowledge, it's just fine. If there were an issue, Greg Bartolome of our engineering department would be working with Mr. Holtz to say, you know what, we've seen some heaving sidewalks on the 71st Street side. We'd like you to fix these two segments, and Mr. Holtz would either hire
I would certainly like that looked at and dealt with before, because we're talking about people,
right.
and at night, and stumbling and tripping and suing somebody.
Sure.
Could you make sure that happens?
Yeah.
On that note, I'd approve.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. The Higgins team is here. Attorney Brian Randall, Brad Siebert, and Colette are here. Colette representing Higgins Tower Service. And 6602 is the address. This has been in the city for numerous years. It's seen quite the evolution over time, with this area formerly being an industrial district, Hall Steel, Salvage Heaven, numerous other sort of light industrial and heavier industrial uses within this area, which have since been replaced with, the Mandel, the West project to the north of National, and the Lofts and Market Row. I keep forgetting the name of that.
Makers Row.
The Makers Row, west of 66th Street, and Oak Brewing, of course. So Higgins is here to stay, and they're proposing some site improvements, which we appreciate. It's going to look very nice for the future of this neighborhood. Just another view. These are fairly recent drone pictures from I think Bob Monnett's drone, and he's flying around. But so this is the general land area for Higgins. There's roughly about, right now I think there's a little bit less frontage, but they're in the works of acquiring some additional land to the west here from the city's Community Development Authority, and there's going to be roughly about 34, 35 or so feet west of this building, to the extent of the west property line. As you know, the Lofts development is going to have access here from not only National Avenue and from 66th Street, but also from Mitchell Street. And then Higgins currently has access as well from Mitchell Street, as well as 2 points on Mitchell Street. And they're going to maintain those two areas. This west area here, this driveway here is going to be modified to accommodate the pulling in and backing in of trucks to a west door. And then this driveway over here will be maintained. And the big change here is going to be there's going to be some landscaping added here at this southeast corner, as well as along the south property line. And we'll get into that in a little bit. This is the certified survey map that Planning Commission and the Common Council approved last year in 2021. And then getting into the architectural changes, this is an older picture of the Higgins building. It's since been repainted a darker gray color. But the nice change here is that they're going to be adding a bracketed canopy over the west overhead door. The building's been repainted. The building's actually really cool. It's got some nice upper, windows that allow in a lot of natural light. It's got a nice presence on the street frontages, so this canopy is just a nice change on that west elevation. In terms of landscaping and paving, the bulk of the work here, scoped from the applicant, is going to be to do some pavement maintenance, basically replacing pavement, but a lot of which is failed, and so they're really doing property maintenance here. They're fixing up the paving of the property. They're restriping it and reconfiguring the parking. Right now, parking stalls are configured here along Mitchell Street, and they're going to be, with the repave and restripe, they're going to put the parking stalls alongside the building. They'll have access here, and then they're going to be putting in a grass terrace between the sidewalk, the city sidewalk, and the curb, and then adding some landscaping here and here on their property, again, for a little curb appeal between the parking lot and the building. This is where that bracketed canopy is going to go on the west side. So they're going to have roughly about 34 feet between the building and a new fence line. This orange line represents roughly a new fence, a 6-foot tall wood fence that they'll be installing on the west side of the property. And we've asked the Higgins team if they could just scale the fence back about 20 feet so it's not coming all the way out to Mitchell, and that'll help promote better visibility as you're pulling in and out of the Higgins property, as well as that Mandel driveway that goes to the lofts and Makers Row. So just for safety and convenience as well. What else am I missing here? What's that? So a little bit in our staff report, we are recommending approval, but you'll note, and we'll get a little bit, but we are recommending that on the north yard, the property improvements are largely taking place here on the west side of the building and the south side of the building. And what we're recommending to the Planning Commission is that on this north area, north of the building, that this storage yard is going to remain, and it's currently fenced with a 6-foot high chain link slatted fence. It does have some barbed wire, and there's a retaining wall back here. And this landscaping, this is an older picture, but there's been more recent development. Just another view looking to the west from 66th Street. This is a more current image of that north storage yard, and then the surroundings. That land, the scrub growth or landscaping that was once here is gone. It was on the Mandel or the city CDA property, and Mandel's doing a lot of moving of dirt and grading over here, so that's just a big dirt pile right now. The city would like to work with the Higgins team on adapting its plan and scope of work to include this north yard as part of a landscaped perimeter area, replacing the chain link fence with perhaps a new wood fence of some sort, and then also putting in some landscaping, perimeter landscaping. I've got, just in terms of what Mandel is proposing, now it's Mandel's primarily focused on, their existing construction project is here. It's the Lofts, which is currently underway. It's being built here along National and the railroad spur. But in this area here is going to be a surface parking lot, and they do have landscaping here. There is going to be some perimeter landscaping on the loft, east side of the loft property. And then Makers Row, phase 1 is the Valentine Coffee site. They have some landscaping on their site. Makers Row phase 2 is a work in progress yet. There is no landscaping plan for that phase 2 project, but when Mandel does get going on that portion of the project, it will come back to Planning Commission and the Common Council with a full site and landscaping plan. So we'd like to work with Higgins again on this north storage yard, just in terms of this overall evolution of this neighborhood, to do something around that existing outdoor storage yard. This is just a really crude concept that was put together. It's not to scale, but I guess it's just for effect of kind of the very basic concept of what we're thinking about is just perhaps a 5 to 8 foot wide landscaping area around the perimeter with and then a fence as the backdrop. And then just some examples, which Plan Commission has approved in the past of similar manufacturing uses with outdoor storage yards that where we've introduced some landscaping to an otherwise, chain link and paved environment, would be Hoppy Tree Service on 73rd Street, just immediately west of the Higgins site. They actually, when they saw down a tree. They reclaimed the wood from the tree, and they made a fence out of it. And in this case, I think an 8-foot tall wood fence. And then they planted regal elm trees within a 4 to 5 foot wide landscape border. Just one example of how Higgins could perhaps maybe take a look at doing something. Another example would be on the, oops, I think I just hit the link. We might be going to the street view here. So never mind. Okay, well, another example would be the Poblocki paving on Curtis Road. This is a 10-foot high wood fence, and then our columnar evergreen landscape. In this case, they had a lot more land area to work with, and they kind of terraced some shrubs, and then they put a retaining wall behind that, and then they installed evergreen landscaping on top of the ledge. So just a couple examples of how to go from something like this to maybe something like this or like this. So our recommendation is for approval, subject to these conditions, and I'm happy to go through any of this. And I know, the Higgins team is here, and I know Brian wants to tell me something.
He looks poised.
Yes.
He looks poised and ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you mind if I take a seat? I don't want to
Yeah.
stand
Right.
and shout from back there. Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Brian Randall, attorney with Davis and Kilthau, 111 East Kilbourne Avenue in Milwaukee, here on behalf of Higgins Tower Service, and Steve did a good job introducing. We have Brad Seibert from Harwood Engineering, who's been working on all the civil side, and Colette Clenz, who's with Higgins Tower Service. Mark Higgins, the president and owner, he's in the field, or he's still coming out of the field, so he couldn't be here this evening, but Colette, frankly, knows all the answers anyway, as may be needed. On our team, we also have Zimmerman Architectural Studios. It's not the biggest gig they had to work on how that awning, that overhang would look. But nonetheless, as Steve mentioned, we're glad to be adding to that west side of the building. And we're very close in alignment with staff on these things, but we do want to address some of the conditions that are in front of you. And really, it is, as simple as it may seem, a complicated project. As Steve talked you through and showed you, we need to acquire land from the CDA. We're trying to be neighborly and work through the issues with a changing area and what's going on right next door to us and how that affects us. And I'll talk about a couple of those things momentarily. But just in case you didn't know, sometimes there are well-kept secrets and hidden gems in our own communities. I live in Wauwatosa, and so West Allis is kind of a neighbor to me. I don't know if you know 66th and Mitchell and what Higgins is as a neighbor, but they are a third-generation, family-owned and operated business in the tower, the aerial tower business, and that's exactly what it is. The pictures I've seen in their office are way up there, and a guy like me who's afraid of heights, I guess I would not be qualified to be employed as one of their 7 employees who need to go up and operate specialized equipment and not be afraid of heights, if you will. But the things that you would expect, flagpoles, steeples, the towers that operate the phone, everything that we need on all that stuff. It's a system and a service that we certainly all do rely on, and Higgins has been proudly here in West Allis for quite some time. I was listening, and I always like to come to meetings from the very beginning to see what else is going on in the community. And I was enjoying Zach's presentation about the urban pioneer and how he was pointing out where they were invoking the industrial heritage in their design. Well, Higgins, and if Steve would go back to some of those pictures, we are living, breathing, and working industrial heritage. It is zoned M1 light industrial. It is an active business. The value of the equipment, the trucks and the specialized equipment inside there, which they always keep clean. I don't know how they do that, but it's very an impressive business that has a very specialized role in the area, and it needs a site like this. It needs storage. It needs maneuverability. It needs access. And so we're aware that there are changes in the neighborhood as demonstrated by that. But nonetheless, a community always needs to try and balance to make sure that what's good and what's long-standing can still thrive and can still be there and coexist. And that's really what we have going on, because we have freight deliveries that come in and they need to go to the Mitchell Street front side. They need to have access to us and our equipment as well. To talk a little bit about this plan right now and to tell you what's going on, the mound to the left, where you can see that stormwater has gathered, that years ago was owned by Briggs and Stratton. And Higgins has an easement, access right easement for ingress and egress to go over that to come out to Mitchell. So we do have an existing driveway, but really with the size of the trucks and our equipment, what they really do is,
everyone runs it like cowboys and cowgirls. They just drive all over that area because it was industrial, right? And we have an easement right to do that. However, the city, through the CDA, owns the site, and in the process, as they transfer that to Mandel and sell that, that easement right has been something that the city attorney flagged and said, you know what, we really probably need to do a better job here is how the industrial traffic from Higgins can coexist or perhaps better be separated. And that's where Steve talked about this 34 feet, where we're actually going to buy from the CDA a strip of land to better accommodate and keep the traffic and the trucks on our own property. It'll be tight, maneuverability. We still have some concerns in that regard, but we think we can make it work, and we just know there aren't enough feet or inches available that we could bump out farther to the west. But as part of that agreement that the city attorney helped to negotiate, we will be relinquishing our easement rights. We'll terminate that. We'll pay for the land. And then part of the upgrades that we're talking about today that we're very excited to be doing on kind of the front side. We'll talk about the north yard in a few moments. But truly, our building orients to the north, or excuse me, to the south, and the Mitchell Street is where we've put the focus and the emphasis on much of this. Just by way of other relevant facts, our 2021 property assessment was $444,000. I think we pay north of $12,000 each year. And we also have a little 66th Street project going on, so we'll be getting some special assessments and writing even more checks to the city. So, why are we here? Because really, we're happy. We have a great business, just minding our own business, but knock, knock, hey, this is all going on around you, and you have this easement that's kind of in the way. What can we do? And so we took a look at that, and certainly as a lawyer, I know easement rights aren't ironclad, and we are at the legal position where we have to accommodate that. So we took a look at this, and with the parking lot condition that we have, and knowing that there might be a better way for circulation and the way the parking stalls orient, like Steve was saying, we decided, yeah, we can invest, we can make this better, and knowing that community standards of things like landscaping, perimeter landscaping, even that Parkway Terrace is paved today, it'll become green. So we've taken a look at how that could work. It's a $100,000 plus project for us. We have the $16,800 that we're buying the land, the strip of land from the CDA. We have about $75,000 in project costs, fencing, landscaping. I don't even want to rely on the paving number. Paving costs are going up like every day, but roughly the project costs are $75,000, and then we have the land acquisition, and then if you put contingency, soft costs, you have Brad's fee, Zimmerman's fee. I don't like to remind them about my fee, but nonetheless, that's the reality. She'll find the checkbook at some point. But it's a $100,000 investment, which we think is appropriate, and it's a commitment this longstanding business is able to make, and what we're able to do for our site and the community. And we know it'll be a good fit with how Mandel is improving things, and that way we can also relinquish our easement, and our traffic won't intersect and cross. What we have concerns about, though, is as we start to go to the north part of our site, which is not even in the scope of our plans. Our plan sheets, we had Harwood, everyone focused on really what we had to do, which was just shown there. It's the west and it's the south. And so we very much appreciate how, on a matter of planning, there could be a better way the north yard could have perimeter treatments. There could be things that could be done. But the reality is the condition of the pavement and the fencing and all that, it is fine, it is functional. We need it for storage. Again, I appreciate the design where Steve showed where the landscaping could go. I think Colette almost fell out of her chair, because we need space to store things in an M1 industrial area. And so every square foot is valuable and is necessary, and that's just the business that we're in. So from our standpoint, looking at, I know doing enough development work that when a change is coming, and when you saw Poblaki, you saw some of those others, okay, we're doing a big addition, or we're making this wholesale change, or we're redeveloping a site, perfect time to accommodate a lot of that. For our north yard, it's really a hardship to essentially double our project scope, pinch our property even more, and create more of the landscaping and fencing in a functional area that we were never even thinking we would do. But we certainly understand how the staff would flag it, would make a recommendation. But I'm here to request that the recommendation 1A on the updated landscaping and screening for the north storage yard and 1D, removal of the barbed wire fencing, be removed as the approval conditions because they're just not appropriate and related to the project scope that's in front of you, which is really to address the Mitchell Street side, the west side. And knowing that the Mandel, that Makers Row Phase 2, they do have room on their side of the lot line. Maybe some of the screening, some of the landscaping could be accommodated at that point. The only other one on letter E, the accessible for ADA, I would ask that maybe you just put a reference at the end of that, if required or subject to staff review. We're working through a couple of issues with city engineering on stormwater, and on that one, I think there's a way that we can continue working with staff, and maybe the Plan Commission could just make that one accessible ADA parking stall on site if required, and that'll give us some of the flexibility. The reality is we're really not open to the public. If we do have someone who has needs, we can accommodate them because Colette knows they're coming. We open the garage door, we'll do something, but the building is not really ADA accessible as it is. But again, we're not changing the building. Those kinds of modifications would occur in the future when and if. But at present, we're not touching the building. We've painted it nicely. And we're really looking forward to making sure the perimeter on Mitchell Street is upgraded. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but really we're like 99% of the way with staff. City attorney led the charge. Planning staff has been great to work with. And we really have a plan on a project that's ready to go. The time is right. We were kind of working on this over the winter, and nobody could think about landscaping then. But we're looking forward to making this happen. We just need the Plan Commission to take a look at, and we'd ask that you remove those two conditions that relate to the north storage yard, because we're just not in a position to undertake that at this time, and that would be a real hardship for us. And we're trying to make the substantial investment and a lot going on in that dynamic neighborhood as it is. Colette, anything that I missed?
I don't think so. I mean, pretty much covered it all.
Thank you.
We're, you know, we are what we are. He's accurate. We're third generation. We are 7 employees, but we make up for it in the field. Most of our counterparts throughout the United States run crews of 20 to 30 people, but we don't. Our foreman has been with us for over 20 years. I'm at the 10-year mark. Our other employees are at, the least amount is 5, but they're in between 5 to 9 years. It's a family. I mean, I'll honestly tell you that we are definitely a family. Sometimes we know just a little too much about each other. It's an all-male contingency except for myself. You know, the Higgins family believes strongly in giving back and doing things. We've been involved within West Dallas, I think almost as long as I've been here, between the parade and different things, and that because they believe in it. It's not an advertisement, because honestly, no one really here is going to use us for what we do, but it's about being part of where you are, and that's a strong bond. I would invite all of you to come into the building, but if you're going to come in, I'm going to tell you, make it when Mark's not there, or you'll never leave, because he's going to tell you stories about every piece of anything that's anywhere, right, Steve? I mean, that's a pretty accurate statement. Is
this meeting being recorded? Is this one being recorded? Okay, so Mark can see exactly what you said.
We're live on YouTube. Yeah.
But so that's all I can really say. When we had thought we might have to move, I mean, we were looking at buildings everywhere, and everything just came back to us like, but it's not here. It's not. We've been here. I don't want to, you know. And so for me, it was a huge relief when we could obtain some of the land to be able to try and make our door work. That's all I can really say. The back lot, I get where people may not want to look at it, but my other philosophy, and maybe this is a wrong attitude to have coming from a farm family, is when you move somewhere and you know it's there, you can't complain about it. You bought and you came after the people. I'm not saying people can't have different expectations, but I have a clean lot. I mean, I don't have garbage and debris and everything else blowing around. It's not done. I don't have that kind of traffic. I don't have those kind of customers. And we're a good neighbor. I mean, we try very hard to help those around us and do different things, whether it's helping when their car's stuck and I've got my crew trying to shovel out the back lot. Yep, go over, help her out, get her out of there. So it's just not what we do. It's who we are, from the Higgins family all the way down to our employees. That's the best I can say.
Brad Cyber can answer technical questions if you have any, but we'll spare you from a third person talking unless you have questions.
As far as the additional area to the north storage yard, when we look, I guess, in terms of staff, I mean, when we look at a site, you know, if it involves something on the south side of the property, you know, we do look at not just that one location. We do look at the overall, you know, comprehensive lot as it sits. So not only what the applicant wants to do, but what other opportunities may be there for, you know, future upgrades. We try to keep that understanding. We try to keep it proportional, of course, you know, within the scope of things. And I understand that if it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget. But what in the past, some things that Plan Commission could or has done, and maybe, you know, could be considered for this, would be to perhaps give, you know, if you were to accept the staff recommendation, maybe give, you know, the additional time to implement some kind of screening around the north storage yard. And I know that one plan, conceptual plan I showed was pretty crude. It shows, you know, literally all three sides, you know, being treated in the same fashion. There are differences within this, you know, storage yard in terms of elevation. There's a very large, you know, significant retaining wall here along the north wall or west side of this area here. And then, you know, the Mandel project will likely be putting in some additional landscaping over here. But I think the critical areas or sides here would be, you know, to think about doing something, you know, along this north and east side of the storage yard. It's not to say that this is any less important, but I would say the two priorities would be the street frontage and this north side of the property. But what I would advocate for from the planning perspective would be for, you know, a plan to be prepared to show what could be, and I guess the cost to go along with that. What's going to cost to design some landscaping, either like the Bablaki example or the Hoppy Tree Service example, or some other example that perhaps maybe Brad or, you know, Brian and team would come up with. You know, identify the cost of that, and, you know, the layout of the landscaping, the type of species, you know, the amount of area that we'd be putting in, the height of fences, and so on, for maybe coming back to the Plan Commission in the future. I guess I do value what Higgins is proposing to do on the south and west sides of the property, and I don't want to discount that. I think what they're doing there is very important, and it's going to help improve the aesthetic of this property, and it's going to take it incrementally forward, along with that of everything else happening in this east side of town. But to stop there, I think we'd be short-sighted. I think we have to go a little further, and I know that's going to cost something, and that something may be over budget. But then again, I guess I don't want to forget about that, and I want to keep that on the burner to think about. Of, you know, at least getting a plan put together. We could give the Higgins team more time to ultimately implement that plan, or at least come back to the Planning Commission with that plan, and maybe we could then work out what makes sense or not. Maybe there's certain sight lines that we could take a look at with strategically placing plants, you know, in certain areas. Maybe it's not just a row of soldiers, so to speak, of arborvitaes, but maybe it's just clusters of something that would help break up an otherwise, you know, the current look.
Another compromise solution could be just taking a look at the type of fencing there as well.
Sure.
And if the area is an issue.
That was a question I had, was on if you have a view of the fence or not.
Yeah, right now it's just a chain link with these kind of like slats that you can kind of see through still.
I think it's the other way. Yeah,
This way.
towards the other.
Right,
There you go.
there it is.
So that's what you have currently. And so another compromise solution could be just looking at doing some sort of wood fencing or something where it's a solid barrier.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about that, you're talking about the green space between the sidewalk and the bottom of that fence. That's at probably, what, a 45-degree angle? So you're asking me to cut down that pavement and then add in so that all of my lot is going to drain down into there and flood that all out. Every planting I put there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to the west side, where the poured concrete wall is, all those fence posts, corner posts, all of them throughout, are buried down in. And when I say buried, I tell you that Mr. Higgins, the owner, was a Navy man. And I'm telling you that wall doesn't move. And those posts don't move.
And it's low. So what I think
So-
Colette's saying is the area is lower than the grade of this area.
My pavement, my parking lot back there is a good 4 feet from where that is.
Right.
I think it's, well, yeah, it's probably this high on me. So that's
looking
where the
down
back
at the
side of all that
landscaping.
is.
And again, I think this was prepared as just a visual concept of what it could like look at, and we're very open to working with the Higgins team to look at a variety of solutions for how that could actually functionally work out. And so, based on what they're saying, yeah, that side wouldn't work for landscaping and such. But I think just I think the kind of options to consider with how we could proceed would be maybe looking at just along that one side along the street, or just doing a modified fencing or something like that. But again, it's up to the planning commission and to make that decision.
So, I mean,
No, I mean, we understand the recommendation, but truly, and I don't want to emphasize the financial piece of it because it's a functional piece. The storage yard, I mean, it's not a glamorous name, but it's a storage yard. We need the storage, we need the space, and we also need to secure the space with the fencing. But everything does have a cost. So right now, our $100,000 project has $16,000 of fencing with the wood fencing. We start adding those incremental pieces, and that's why we get to doubling the project cost when we're not touching the north storage yard. We don't have the pavement failure there. We don't have to acquire land there. So again, we like to have the discussion, and maybe it gives us the idea of when and if we do something, or in 10 or 15 or 20 years, maybe the Higgins site will be redeveloped into something else. Those are all common sense things. I mean, maybe the city shouldn't be doing something that could create a barrier or prevent other things because there's too nice a landscaping in a certain area. So the reality is nothing's forever. But what we really want to focus on is the frontage, the Mitchell Street side, and where the public right-of-way is. We know what's going on and what's developing on the backside, but there could be landscaping and screening, and it's a functional need that we have. And we just don't want a very good deal to fall apart right at the last minute and us to just hold up our easement and say, well, we need to keep having our access rights over there and we'll just make do. I don't think that's a good solution for anyone. But we're really hard pressed to focus on one side of it and then be forced to do the other side. But it's a good conversation to have. And I think we can, I mean, frankly, I asked senior staff the other day on the call if there are any grant funds available, if there's a city beautification fund that can help us with half the cost of the fence. Well, that helps us out. But right now, it's someone else grabbing our checkbook, and we're willing to spend the money on the front side because it will make a big difference to the neighborhood.
Questions? Oh, Alderman Rope.
You do or don't want the barbed wire?
We don't want to touch the north storage yard, so we want to keep the chain link fence with the slats and the barbed wire that exists. The west fence and the northwest corner, that'll be a brand new wooden fence with no barbed wire. And we'll stop short of the 20 feet, whatever the staff recommendation was, to make sure the vision triangle is there. And so that'll be a new wooden fence all along the west and in the northwest corner without barb.
I don't think we have barbed wire anywhere in the city anymore.
it's just, if it's out there, it's been there forever,
Right.
or for a while.
So it's essentially grandfathered.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Oh, okay.
it is until you want to pull a permit to do something and make a site improvement or a building alteration, then we have a condition like this, remove barbed wire, you know.
You did Granite Hills too, right?
Yes, the hospital just to the west.
Look at their barbed wire around their basketball courts.
Don't they have the
Well,
tines?
same thing. Fancy barbed wire.
Right. And that's a good example. I mean, that's a new project with a newer technology and it's brand new construction. So, of course, they met
Right.
with the best practice standards. And if Higgins fencing were to fail in the north storage yard, we would have to comply with code and we might have to change that. But, I mean, that's the reality. Until we read the staff report, and this is the back and forth comments, we're like, wait, we're looking at the north storage yard? I mean, everything we had focused on, where we need to buy the land, where we need to add landscaping, where we're going to redo our parking stalls, is on the south and the west.
So if I could just ask if if I got everything correct, you're looking at about a $100,000 project, which is inching towards a $200,000 project.
It's over $100,000, just simple math today.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know Brad's fee. He doesn't know my fee, but whatever. We're over $100,000 when you get to the soft costs and buying the land and the project costs. To do the North Storage Yard, and I appreciate Steve saying that we might have to look into a lot of these things, but as Colette said, there could be grading issues, there could be soil removals, all that. That essentially doubles the project, though, if we just look at what the fencing costs and the landscaping costs for what we already know on the south side would be.
And that's my question is, I mean, I just have to think there's got to be something that this body could come up to agree on that would not be everything, but also wouldn't be nothing. And something, whether it's prioritizing on improving the fencing or prioritizing some landscaping, just something to make that look better, but not the whole, every element involved. And I don't know how the...
I mean, I certainly don't think, I wouldn't push to, you know, in the sketch, obviously the fence is moved in, and I wouldn't push for that. I think the fence in its current location, I wouldn't want to take any space from what they're using for storage, but I do agree that along 66th, as this all gets developed, I'd be satisfied if we could just get the chain link fence replaced. I mean, I don't...
On 66th?
On 66th, yeah. I mean, I think along the north and along the west, it's unfortunate, but if it's unsightly, essentially, when the development comes in, they'll make the choice to screen it from their perspective. And I don't know. I guess that's my opinion on it. I mean, I'd be satisfied if we could get something just on 66th and get the fence replaced, but I'm just one person here. I don't know.
Well, there's really no way to make that fence look better without replacement, right? There's no enhanced slatting or anything that can be put in there that would look better. I don't know.
Yeah, the new plastic slats, but I think if they're doing a wood fence on the other side, I would love it if we could get a wood fence replacement on 66. But again, I certainly understand the grade difference along the west, and there's not a lot you can do. And again, I think that we're going to see the west and north sides get developed, and they could certainly be screened from the other side. That I don't know.
Thank you. It appears that it strikes me that Higgins is responsible, and they've been a good neighbor. As I was looking at the aerial views earlier, that north storage yard it's an eyesore. And to your point, I think we have to come up with something. A planning group has to come up with something with the applicant to deal with the fact that this sits right in the middle of what's become quite a major renovation. I mean, that area was terrible for years, and it's taken on really a life of its own. It's looking good. It's attractive. We're able to have apartments. We're able to have bars. We're able to have good activity. And as we continue to refresh that area, this north storage yard has to be dealt with. And I don't know how we proceed without having the applicant and plan department get together and hammer out some sort of compromise, something that will work for everybody. I don't think we can do that in this meeting, but I think the parties can get together and work out an arrangement, and then we'll come back and look at that and make a decision.
I think we would probably like to have something approved today in terms of having some sort of. We wouldn't want to. I think one thing is also we wouldn't want to delay their project. That's something I think staff is also considering. So, I think if we could find.
Can I interrupt? Sorry, not to interrupt all of you before you go too far into this. But so if I'm understanding correctly, if I'm willing to, at my existing fence location along 66th Street on that east side, if I take out that chain link fence and I put metal or I put wood fencing along there, you all will be okay with that. I have to use existing where it's going, so I'm gonna probably buddy up to existing pipes on the inside. You won't see it on the outside, but you're good with that. Is that accurate? And then you'd be willing
David.
to approve us?
He is.
I don't know that
I think I would be good with that. Yeah,
We have one vote for that, but we don't know about the rest of us.
Right.
I would be good with that.
2.
That's two,
Be fine with it.
not with me. I want the parties to get together and resolve this. Because the applicant would like to have this pushed out indefinitely, and you would like to have something done now, not to the extent that you've laid out, but at least a compromise. So go and get together and compromise, and come back to us. I don't like,
I think that is a good. I don't know, Steve. I think this is a better compromise. I don't know. What do you think? I guess.
Well, I guess we've got 1, 2, 3 for the fence on the west, and then, I guess it's a step in the right direction. I guess from the staff perspective, we're asking for
Is it
more.
is it the existing fence that's a problem on all three sides, or from staff's perspective, what are the concerns?
Sure.
Is-
Yeah,
You
well,
think that the new development is not going to be able to do landscape screening to essentially hide?
Yeah,
that, or-
I'm sure they will. And it's almost even not so much. Forget about Maker's Row and the lofts. If that weren't happening, would we still be interested in doing something in this north storage yard? Would we still have a similar recommendation? I think the answer is yes. We would still have a similar. We want an improvement to the barbed wire chain link fence. We'd like to see that replaced with something new. So I think a fence upgrade, I think, is a yes from my perspective, from the planning perspective.
Do we know on the Maker's Row Phase 2 right there, how far up to that fence is it going to go? And are we going to ask them to fix up a fence that it's going to be covered by a wall that no one will see anyway?
Or if I can interrupt too, here's my developer thought going through, well, what is Maker's Row 2 and does it have back of house? Like, where are their dumpsters? Where is their stuff that isn't as nice to look at as well? There's going to be a practical reality, and what I'm hearing is a lot about Maker's Row Phase 2. We don't know what it's going to be, but I have concerns that we might, if we were to adopt staff recommendation, have a botanical garden on our property, and then we're looking at dumpsters and back of house for them. So, that's I guess today's reality, which none of us know.
You'd probably
They could landscape on theirs if they have somebody's front window looking right out at our storage yard. But to Colette's point earlier, we've been there first. We've been there forever, and we appreciate the progress in the area and the development. But West Dallas, as a proud community, just like a proud company, you don't want to push people out. You don't want to say you're not open for business.
Right.
And so our zoning is permitted use, storage yard is a permitted use, and we're trying to make our incremental improvements. And through Colette, and I think probably conferring with Mark right there, we're able to add more wood fencing along 66th Street, which will add to our project costs, but be part of our commitment to the community and the neighborhood.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Well, I would move to approve with the replacement of the fencing along 66th Street as a part of the
So
weather
we would
conditions.
take out the items A. Is that A and
I
D?
think it's here. We got up here.
Let's pull it up to make sure we get this right.
2A.
So we are. A is basically some updated landscaping screening. So I guess an updated plan to include. Insert the word here. Something around
A new fence.
a new fence
on the
on the
66th Street side.
on the east 66th Street side of this north storage yard.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we could get rid of. I think we could strike D because that would be kind of included in A.
Right.
Then because we're looking at we would be saying new fencing in part A along 66th Street side.
D is removal of barbed wire. You're right. So with the new fence, right? Your new fence is going to have. I guess we'd want a detail of your new fence. If it is the new east fence, it would not have barbed wire fencing. Okay. So,
Okay.
Right, it would match the fencing on the west.
Is it possible to just remove the barbed wire on the other two sides? Or is that a security issue?
That's a security issue on that west lot because they would then walk right up and walk right into my backyard.
Because of the grade change?
If they're high.
Oh,
Okay,
Okay, makes sense.
makes sense.
Right now, with everything going on in there, they can do it really super easily with the dirt pile.
Okay.
Like, they can just literally jump right over.
So I think we have a motion.
Okay, yeah,
to-
so I would move to approve with condition A being revised to note an updated plan submitted to show replacement of the fence along 66th Street.
I'll second that.
And then we'll strike
And
D as well.
strike condition 2B as well.
to
2D. Yeah.
To D. To D.
2D. We're
Yeah.
removing 2B?
I thought A and D were the two that they were
Okay. Sorry.
discussing.
Yeah, because the D is
One A and
barbed wire. Yeah.
A and D. So yeah, B is more referring to the landscaping plan on the front side of the property. So
Okay, okay.
That one would still we would still want that one to stay.
You want me to redo it?
No, I think you're
No, I
good.
think we're all
I think
following
we've
it.
got the
Okay.
intent of it down.
Was
I
the
would-
was the 1A intent for a, did we specify the type of fence? Was it wood?
We would like to see the chain link fence replaced with a wood fence to match what's being installed on the other side of the property.
Got it.
Because yeah, that's what I thought. I heard earlier too. Right? I was going to say wood fence.
Okay.
All right.
I will
Now, if
second
we
that.
really want to save him money, let's vote on this so we can get Brian out of here and off the clock. Love the guy. Don't get me wrong. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. I'll vote aye. 4-1.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Colette. Thanks, Brian.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
a good compromise. I mean,
All right, then we'll move on to item 5.
Good compromise team. Okay. Item 5 is site landscape and architectural amendment for Masonry Restoration Incorporated. I know we've gone a little bit over, so I'll try to keep this brief. The Steve Ketterhagen, the architect, was intending to join via Zoom and could not attend due to our technical issues. So he may be watching on YouTube, but is not present with us.
thank you.
So this is an existing office and warehouse. Is zoned M1. It's on 9522 West Schlinger Avenue. It is a permitted use, and they're proposing to add an accessory warehouse and kind of expand their site of operations to adapt to their growth. So Masonry Restoration Inc. has been located here for approximately 30 years. They're a construction company, and they do masonry repair, typically for large buildings. You'll see them doing work on facades in downtown Milwaukee frequently. This location is their company headquarters, so it's primarily their office, but they also run their operations out of there. So they store equipment, vehicles, and materials in their warehouse and yard. So their goal is their business is growing. They want to adapt their site to that growth and add some capacity for storage. They expect to complete this project in the fall of this year. So simply put, this is just bulk of this project is just a warehouse addition, nearly doubling the size of their existing accessory warehouse. It's just very simple architecture. They're having 2 ingress and egress doors, 3 garage bays, and it's just an empty space in there. Architecturally, it's masonry matching the existing warehouse. At its tallest point, it is 18 feet tall. So looking at the site plan, in orange, these are their buildings. This is their principal building, their office. And in the back here, this is their existing warehouse, and this is their proposed addition. The white color here is their paved area. They're proposing to expand this paved area to the west. You can see this area here is what's being expanded. So this is triggering some of our stormwater requirements. They're going to be adding landscaping and a bioswale type rain garden in this location here, the green here. They have some existing landscaping on this east side. And then we are actually exploring opportunities with them to utilize some of the Green Solutions funding that the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District has to install permeable pavement in the vehicles parking spaces here to kind of further help with the stormwater runoff issue. One kind of big thing with this is that they will be adding fencing. So they're going to be adding fencing along the west property line, and they're proposing to add fencing along the front line. this would be, I believe, just a chain link fence, and very similar to what's going on with Mason or with Higgins. We have proposed that they look into doing either a matching masonry wall. Right here, they have a masonry wall. We'd either want them to match that or do some type of more decorative fencing along that as well.
Just,
yeah.
I apologize. You're recommending that just along Schlinger?
Yeah, just along Schlinger.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then they have a gate here that's going to be moving in, so we just want to have some detailed plans on those as well. And so here's a look at the existing conditions. So this driveway is actually no longer there. I believe it's just kind of more like this grass lot over here. This is their masonry wall and landscaping. So we're recommending that they match that type of masonry wall or have some other decorative fencing that they can work out with our staff instead of just doing chain link. And so that kind of wraps it up. And so just a summary of our recommendations is to show we need to see some fence details, entrance gate details, then update the site plans to show a decorative fence or wall and some details. We'd also like to see some trees for screening from the residential site, a landscaping plan approved by forestry, and then just indicating where their proposed storage is going to be, their outdoor storage on the site. We also need to see a civil plan with their stormwater management, which they're working to get to us, and then just making sure that they're in compliance with their stormwater code. We will then be also requiring a surety bond as part of this project. Any questions or comments?
Have you discussed the wall with them, or is this new?
We have made them aware of our recommendations, and they're, I guess, they haven't had any big, no against these things, and so they're aware of what we're recommending today, and haven't had any significant comments.
Any other questions?
So I'm assuming that they're willing to do those recommendations as well.
If not, they'll be back.
Yeah.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in
I would-
favor? Oh, sorry.
Would you prefer for condition C to be limited to the decorative wall to match the other side? Do you want to remove the fence as an option, or do you want to leave that in there for discussion with them?
We actually expanded it to be fence or wall. I mean,
Okay.
so. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good point. I think after some discussion with them, they wanted some flexibility to
Okay.
kind of look at things.
Okay.
Yeah.
As noted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there is no other discussion, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
All right, so this 6th and 7th items we would like to take together.
Okay.
So this is the city zoning code and zoning map. So this comes back to us at Plan Commission now from Safety and Development. Safety and Development Committee held a special meeting on March 29th where they made several amendments to the zoning code and map, or specifically the zoning code as we had as it had originally passed through Plan Commission. And now tonight, Plan Commission will make an updated recommendation, send it back to Safety and Development, and then next week on May 3rd, Common Council will vote to approve. So the amendments to the zoning code are as follows. First, home-based businesses. The Safety and Development Committee wanted to increase some of the restrictions found in 19.372, item 2. The highlighted text is what we'll be changing. There will be a limit on the number of clients that can enter a home occupation, like the home per day. They expanded the hours that appointments cannot be held from to be a little bit larger than what we had originally, which was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then they also added this clause that the home-based business may not be any activity licensed by the state. And so these are some of the example. This is the list from the state's statutes. I know it can be a little bit hard to read. I'll run through some of them. Nursing, accounting, let's see, funeral directors, chiropractic examining board, acupuncture, real estate, etc. So the main ones that this is going to be in, most of these wouldn't qualify as a home-based business because they wouldn't have clients coming to the site. The ones where it may impact them are things like massage therapy, body art, barbering and a hair salon, nail salon. Those are the kinds of things that would be probably most affected by this, and that's what Common Council wanted, why they wanted to include it.
Does the architects fall on that one?
So architects fall in it, but they would not be considered a home-based business. They'd be considered a home office because they don't have clients coming to the site.
Asking for a friend.
But you, an architect, would have clients coming to his office.
If they apply for a home-based business, or they under our code, we would likely consider them a home office because they aren't typically, having multiple clients coming their site every day. They may be able to do most of their work remotely, and then we could consider them a home office. I think
Zoom meetings if it works.
Yeah, this is a good point. And this was safety and development discussed this pretty extensively.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So home-based businesses is actually from a residence. That person actually lives there. It's not like a business, say that maybe they have the lower duplex and they have a business out of that, but they're not living there.
Yeah, this is it could be from somebody's, just running from their residence, basically. And then a home business versus a home office is if the home-based business, if they're having clients come to the site
Okay.
for their business. Another amendment is they want to adjust, they're proposing, the county council is proposing to, or safety and development committee, I should say, is proposing to adjust the restaurants, which restaurants would be allowed as a limited use. So this would be which restaurants are allowed without a public hearing. As we originally proposed, any restaurant smaller than 2,000 square feet would not need a public hearing. And the safety and development committee elected to add an additional limitation to this, where that if they're open, if as long as they can also they can continue to be a limited use if they are not operating between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So restaurants that are operating at those kind of nighttime hours would still be considered a conditional use. It would still have to go through the public hearing in Common Council. So it's just kind of an additional restriction from what we originally had in the proposal. Then there's a series of small edits that the planning staff recommended Safety and Development Committee adopt. For one, we found a slight transcription error with our nicotine sales use restrictions. We just wanted to change this to make sure it matched the existing ordinance and the intent of the ordinance. The way it had been originally transcribed was not word for word and created some issues there. So we just cleaned that up. We also wanted to slightly adjust the principal use definition, literally just changing the word B for A. This would more clearly show that there can be multiple principal uses on a lot, which would allow for mixed uses. And then the third small change is to adjust our permissions for 1 and 2 unit dwellings. We wanted to expand this in our code right now, or as we had originally proposed, I should say. You would not be able to do a commercial building with 1 residential unit above in several of our commercial districts, and so we wanted that to continue to be allowed as it is right now. So we are going to the Safety and Development Committee agreed to expand those as a limited use in our commercial districts, so that they could be incorporated just into mixed uses, as we kind of had originally intended. And then lastly, for item 7, the zoning map. We corrected some small errors that were in our GIS database, and identified, we kind of worked with our GIS department to make sure those are properly up to date, and we did find some small changes. And then we also just worked to improve the color scheme so that you could more clearly differentiate between our districts. So our residential districts will be in yellow to in orange. The yellow, 3 yellow variations for our A districts. Then our RB will be this kind of light orange tannish color. The darker orange will be RC. Our commercial districts will range from like a light pink to a dark red. Manufacturing from purple to dark purple. Parks green, and then State Fair to gray. So just some changes there to help clarify what the districts were. I know our previous map at times was kind of difficult to read and distinguish between those districts. So that's one change we wanted to make as well. At this time, is there any comments or questions?
I think there was one other. Did you?
Oh, that's great.
There's one
I
other.
almost forgot.
Oh, this one, yeah, good.
This is one change, and the reason I forgot is because this is a new thing that I believe it was our attorney's office recommended.
Pete Engineering.
Engineering recommended this. So this came to us after the March 29th Safety and Development Committee meeting, but there is an issue in the second subchapter of the zoning code, which wasn't what we were really touching with the rest of our update. We were kind of leaving this as is, but there is one problem in that one of the subtitles. Right now it's called the Root River Flood Control District, and we want to change this to just be Flood Control District so that it more clearly applies to the Honey Creek and Kinnickinnick rivers, which are found in West Allis. So that is a change that we would recommend. The staff recommends, that Planning Commission recommends that that the Common Council adopt along with the ordinance.
Any questions?
I don't think so.
I agree.
All right.
What do you need from us? Do
you need us to move to approve?
Recommend approval
Move to
from
recommend.
the
Yes, please.
council.
Yeah.
I'll move.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Good.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
All right. Thanks.
We need a. Oh, sorry.
And one last item.
Last item, project tracking updates. Been a few things just in terms of April. There's been a lot of construction, as you know. We talked about a little earlier with the lofts, and then coming soon, probably this summer, we'll see the construction of, we hope, Valentine Coffee at the corner of 6 Points Crossing and here 66 and National. But construction is well underway on the Mandel project. Also, the two gas stations we had approved last year, one on 84th and Greenfield, another on 84th and Beloit. Zach and I had a meeting earlier today with Gary Nagra, the owner of both of those sites, and he's doing some of his due diligence right now, soil testing, soil borings, and the 84th and Greenfield site showed up as clean, and next month they're going to pull their demo permits to start demoing the home next door and the old gas station, and then building the new gas station at 84th and Greenfield. On 84th and Beloit, they did run into some contamination and soil issues that they're working out. Nothing major, but it's just something that might take a little bit longer before they get to the demo. But ultimately, what did they say? Construction in July.
If construction starts in July, will they be disrupting any traffic flow at State Fair?
Most of this, I mean, I don't think so. Definitely not for this one. It's all going to be pretty much on site. I guess we'll have to talk to them a little bit more about sidewalks, make sure they're not blocking sidewalks
Right.
and keeping it contained, with all that walk-up traffic.
Unless they're going to be done by August 2nd.
Yeah, right.
And I was going to say, for the safety of the pedestrians coming back and forth, too, because I know how busy that area can
Right,
get during
right,
State
yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, so it's a good point. We'll carry that forward with Gary. Also, project updates with the different Magic Auto. The architect, I think, is working with that applicant and getting them situated towards applying for a permit.
They were approved for a building permit.
Oh, they were approved?
By
Okay.
us. They're working with building inspection.
Got it. So they're in the building inspection queue right now. Our Ethiopian Cafe has been working with, I think Kiva has reached out to them, but then also Patrick and Sean in economic development. We're able to work with them and get an economic development loan approved for them, or grant, I should say, for the new coffee shop. And building permits have been applied for. They've satisfied the Plan Commission conditions of approval. And then the Domino's Pizza special use was approved by council last month. That's for the old Menchie's Frozen Yogurt location. Aside from that, we've been following up on some enforcement issues with some rope lighting throughout town. It seems to be making a resurgence of that, the LED window frame lighting throughout the city. So we're following up on some of those issues. We're ringing on Dollar General's bell to get us some closure on that metal siding on the west elevation of their building. It's still there. Here we are, and we're asking them. I did manage to get their attention, and they are going to get back to me on that. And then over on 62nd and Burnham, I think they have a Milwaukee County-owned nickel plating site. The building in the old factory is gone, but somebody's made an offer to Milwaukee County to buy the property, and they're squatting on the property with a camper and some vehicles that have shown up on the property. So we're trying to get a hold of the county and find out exactly what's going on there and who this person is. So they've got illegal storage on the site. So there's just a few of those enforcement things, and there's more. But I mean, Macoco's had some signage issues that recently were
I see the
remedied.
bakery was moving forward, and 92nd there, were they finally going to get Was that off of 92nd and Greenfield, right? They were.
The
Red Pillars.
Red
Yeah.
Pillars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were getting moved.
Yeah, they're moving along. Yeah.
They were working on their rooftop.
Yep.
I drove by there recently too. I saw them working.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, you said the contamination issues at the two gas stations. Is that from previous business owners?
It's from the previous gas station, which was there like in the 70s and
Probably,
stuff. It
yeah.
was a very long time ago. I remember noting that in the staff report. It was
Dan
back
wrote,
then.
was Sinclair gas station, or was it something else after that?
Oh, it was Beacon.
Beacon, yes,
Beacon
yeah.
gas station.
Yeah.
So they found some contaminated soil from that. Apparently, those gas tanks were leaking slightly, but they're gonna be removing that soil, and there's some there's some high water level there, so they're gonna
Oh, yeah.
they have to tie down the tanks in some special way. But
So I take it like all previous tanks have been removed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay.
So that it'll be moving forward, but just got
A few extra steps with making sure that the contaminated soil is removed from the site and to DNR standards.
thanks. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Is there something going on? I mean, there was that Chinese restaurant, Beecher and National,
Yeah,
and now it's got a big sign that's just taped on there that says it's becoming a laundromat.
laundry,
Yes,
right?
we were working
I
with Flash.
mean-
They were actually going to. We originally had them on this plan commission, and then they submitted. They're interested in pursuing a storefront grant, which they may not be anymore.
Okay.
We're working
Because all
with
of a
them. We're
sudden they
actively
had
working
this
with
sign
them.
up, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I don't remember.
Joy's Walk.
Joy's Walk, yeah.
Yeah,
Who's the former
yeah.
restaurant there. So we're working with them, and we'll likely have something next month.
Okay.
They're
I
going to be
was just
appealing.
curious.
They're going to be doing some sort of sign appeal, likely. So.
All right.
I'd move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All in favor?
Thanks, everybody.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.